hillsides and stockpiled our pathetic, ammunition and things. But we were ready. Let the Ruskies come. We were ready.
Each day in school, kids were told that war could break out at any moment, an atomic war in which millions would die.
Everybody's worried about the atomic bomb.
In the 60s, the fear of instant annihilation convinced many young people that they should live for today, not the future.
While the suit is made of this material, inside this layer is shredded lead, a resistance against atomic rays. Okay, Richard, on your way to there, Red Joseph. Let's go.
Each of us were dispensed a dog tag, which we were told by this old teacher, somewhat tactlessly, could withstand the heat of 1,000 degrees centigrade, made not to melt. Unfortunately, our skin disintegrated about 900 degrees before. But we had the comfort of knowing we could be identified in the event we were burned beyond recognition in a nuclear holocaust. She actually put it that way.
Attention, attention. This is an official civil defense warning. This is not a test. The United States is under nuclear attack.
It's going to happen. Duck and cover. And everybody puts their heads like this, and you scramble under the desk. And then we get up after it, and we resume our social studies. And nobody talks about it. Nobody talks. The teachers don't say, hey, this is crazy what we're doing to the kids. This is not how we want you to grow up to be, No, the teachers just went through this stuff in some kind of numb trance, because if they said no, why, God, who could say no but a lousy commie pinko sap? Because immediately the reactionaries were on the school board. Get that person out of here. We can't have pinkos teaching our kids. Gone.
Americans reacted to communism by developing an almost religious conviction that communism and everything connected to it was evil and immoral. And everything about America was perfect. That America was the shining beacon of liberty and freedom.
There's something about America that makes me shout with joy. It's a land of opportunity for every girl and boy. There's something about our president that makes me shout hooray. In America, we all might be the president someday.
We, as a group, were taught that the world was consisted of right and wrong, good and evil, the free world and the Iron Curtain. We were the free world. We were the leaders of the free world. If the United States did things, then we were right.
This teaching, which combined indisputable truth with obvious exaggeration, was repeated over and over again in thousands of schools, from thousands of pulpits, and by many national leaders.
Communism in reality is not a political party. It is a way of life, an evil and malignant way of life. It reveals a condition akin to disease that spreads like an epidemic. And like an epidemic, a quarantine is necessary to keep it from infecting this nation.
There was these evil people, and I remember seeing a movie where you went home one day and your home wasn't yours anymore. It was most distressing. I think it is like really evil what people told young children about communism.
We learned in school that home life does not encourage the growth of the collective character which the party wishes to develop in its young people. It's your fault. You should have spent more time training us to think along party lines. As a member of the Young Pioneers, it will be my duty to report you.
You better listen to me, all of you. I don't want to hear any more talk about state schools and party lines and collective character and deviationism. This is going to be a family again, and I know just where to start. You two are going to Sunday school, and you're going right now.
Mommy, tell us!
No use to argue.
During this period, the belief that America was good and communism was evil became one of the nation's chief articles of faith and one of the most important seeds of the 60s, because millions of America's children accepted it and based their faith in their country on its truth.
I believed that this was reality. This was the United States of America, that anybody, no matter what color your skin, no matter what religion you were, what country your ancestors came from, none of that was supposed to matter. And that's what we were told. And I believed strongly.
There's something about America that's wonderful to me. And do you know what that something is? We are really free.
We are really free. That's what the 60s generation had been taught from birth. But they were seeing contradictory images on television, disturbing images from places like Little Rock, Arkansas. What led to the violence was black parents wanting to give their children the same good education white children were getting. This was an important part of a larger black civil rights struggle against prejudice and discrimination. For Southern black people, and for the millions of young whites who had been taught to believe in American justice and freedom, this struggle and what it said about America may be the most significant seed of the 60s. South, black people were kept down not just by unwritten rules, but by laws backed by the full force of state and local government, the Jim Crow laws. While white parents were telling their kids to obey the rules so that prosperity and happiness would be theirs, black people had a very different vision of the American dream.
The American dream for my particular family was survival. They did not want to do something that was going to rock the boat and interfere with the status quo. I think that for them to have a job and to do anything, or to have your kids do anything that would threaten the family livelihood, was ridiculous. And so we stayed in our proper place.
You just don't understand the connection that we have with the colored people. In other words, we work with them and they work with us. And we're not going to take him and push him off somewhere just because we could do it.
The idea was that you must go to the white man, it was the statement, to get everything you need. He controls everything, and if you fight him, he's going to fight back, and he's going to hurt you, and he's going to win.
Had we been your friends for years?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Had we worked more of them than anybody in this country?
Yes, sir. Sure have.
Right.
In a strange, almost perverse way, it was the institution of segregation that gave black people the strength and the solidarity they needed to fight for equality.
Segregation meant not only the hardships, and it meant not only the terrible anxiety, but it was also a sharing time. It was also a sense of community and a sense of collective accomplishment in the face of just terrible odds. People who experience a kind of holistic oppression find ways to develop an enclave, find ways to develop values that nurture young children so that they are not given the message and internalize the message that we are nobody. They're given a message that your life has value, that what you're about is respected by us, even if it's not by the outside world. And they're also given one other value, a sense of dignity and a sense of mission.
The mission that was being given to young black people as they were growing up was crystal clear. Get a good education and use it to better yourself and society.
Education was an absolute must because you learned early that the one thing no one could take from you was what was in your head. So you tried to acquire as much knowledge, and education was just so important.
I'm going to tell you, reading the white folks don't tell us to go to school and see to us going to school. If you learn yourself some sense, you got to be just a little notch ahead of them. If you have to lick dirt for your children, wash your clothes at night, if they want them education, get it. Anybody can be nobody, but everybody can be somebody.
In these Southern community schools, students were being taught reading, writing, and arithmetic, and values that in a few years would give a generation of young black people the skills and the commitment to sustain the greatest social movement of 20th century America.
I can remember in high school teachers saying to you that you're gonna learn everything I know about this before you leave my class. You know, and because these teachers were also from the community, they could whoop you. they could do anything your parents did. You know, I mean, you could expect the same treatment that you would get at home.
Even with these efforts, Southern black communities felt they were facing terrible limitations in their ability to educate their children. Black schools and white schools were separate and supposed to be equal, but everyone knew they were not.
The school that we went to, we called them tar paper shacks. They were really wooden buildings with tar paper on the outside and a wood stove inside. The stoves had gotten big holes in them. When they made fires in them, the hot coals would jump out. Whoever sat behind the stove, that was your job to get the coals back in so the building wouldn't burn. And at the time, you know, when you flip the coals back in, you think it's funny. But we could see that this was no condition for learning. And we knew that we deserved something better. It was very obvious to us that what we had was not equal. And I never really realized how unequal things were until I came back here and had a chance to tour the old white school, which was then closed, and see they had all this stuff stored over there. I mean, they even had, like an open area in the center of the school, but they had a garden. I know when I went to college, first biology course I took, they handed us a microscope and slides and told us to, you know, to draw amoebas, and I drew dust particles for a couple of weeks because I didn't want anybody to know I didn't know how to use a microscope because we didn't have one. So.
In their struggle to give their children equal educational opportunities, black communities seized upon a revolutionary concept: school integration.
When I first heard about integration and heard that it may possibly one day be the way things would go, I had very mixed feelings about it. I was no more anxious to mingle with white people than I'm sure many of them were anxious to mingle with me. I felt the same reservations, the same prejudices, I guess I may as well say, that any of them felt, you know. So I was not at all thrilled over the prospect. But as time went on, I began to realize that possibly this was, after all, the only way that the terrible injustices could be somewhat alleviated.
We have been on the outside of the mainstream of America's life. We have been on the outside of society. We have been on the outside of education.
In their attempt to integrate the schools, frustrated black communities sued Southern school boards. And in May 1954, in the case Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court announced its decision. Separate schools were inherently unequal. School segregation was outlawed. But there was no guarantee the white South would accept that decision.
The moment a Negro child walks into the school, every decent, self-respecting, loving parent should take his white child out of that parochial school.
The minute they walk in, that's when we walk out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not right. They have schools just as good as ours. It would be different if we had a choice, but we don't have a choice like they do. See, they can go to ours or they can go to their own, but we have to go to white school. They have rights too. Negroes aren't the only ones that have a right.
After the Brown decision, things did not change very quickly in terms of school desegregation across the South. As a matter of fact, in many places after several years, things began to move in the opposite direction. Schools shut down across the South, particularly in Virginia. You began to see a racist backlash in the development of the white citizens' councils, the rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan in many parts of the South, and finally, the emergence of a series of very opportunistic white politicians who used the issue of school desegregation as a bloody flag, which they waved before an outraged white electorate, saying segregation now and segregation forever.
We shall not submit to Negro dominion another day, another hour, another moment.
To see just how far white communities went to sabotage school integration, consider the case of Prince Edward County, Virginia, where the local white-dominated government shut down the entire public school system, and white residents built private schools for their children.
When the schools finally closed, it was like, you know, shock, disbelief. This can't be happening. You know, how can it happen? And it was just like everybody had died. Everybody had died in the community. Nobody knew what to do. The kids had been locked out of school. It was a nightmare.
You don't close schools to stop people from getting an education in the 1950s in the United States of America. The country that advocates democracy for everyone all over the world, and you're going to close schools to keep from integrating? I mean, that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't gel. That's, you know, that's how I felt, and that's where I still feel.
It was white resistance to a Supreme Court ruling, to the law of the land, to what black people saw as the surest path to equality, that inspired the Southern black community, and especially young black people, to fight back. And that battle played a major role in making the 60s what they were.
The only thing out there in the society that gave one any hope, that gave me any hope that I could do anything with the feelings that were mine and so different from anything else and that couldn't exist in a gray flannel suit, was the Negroes, okay? These people way over there, they were down south. They weren't in my county, but on the television comes these pictures of these black kids in the compounds down south with the dogs at them, with the hoses on them, you know. Good God, it was unbelievable. Here were people standing up for something that was vital to them, that was right for them as citizens, moving, saying no to what they had been and yes to what was promised them and what was inside them. And it sliced across the face of the American reality. We grew up in a time when none of the adults would take a chance.
Making Sense of the 60s will return in a moment with We Can Change the World, a look at the idealism and activism of the early 1960s.
I'm gonna walk
This is PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service.
This is Charles Krause for the McNeil-Lehrer News Hour. In the news at this hour, a U.S. Patriot missile has brought down another Iraqi missile over Riyadh. 2 other Scud missiles landed in the Saudi desert without incident, according to diplomatic sources. And finally, in what the Pentagon calls a daring mission, a U.S. Air Force helicopter has rescued a U.S. Navy pilot from inside Iraq. This has been a News Hour update.
And we hope you are enjoying Making Sense of the 60s. WVIZ would like to invite you to remember the 60s as they happened in Northeast Ohio. The Beatles at the stadium, President Kennedy's visit to Public Square, Mayor Carl Stokes, the newspaper strike, the Huff Riots, and the Browns' great 1964 season. Join us 1 hour earlier tomorrow at 8 for the 60s Remembered as we take a look at the events shaping Cleveland in the 1960s. Then stay with us at 9 for the second day of Making Sense of the 60s. But now, please stay tuned for part 2.
For Making Sense of the 60s was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you. Additional funding was provided by Sims Clothing Stores, where since 1960 an educated consumer has been our best customer. And by Tom's of Maine, a pioneer in natural personal care. Tom's of Maine and nature, a friendship of 20 years.
What the automobile did for America in the first half of the century, the university will do today. Clark Kerr, President, University of California.
Dear Bob, so my kid brother's high school class is beginning to think about college. Sure, I'll be glad to help you prepare a report on Michigan State. Your first friend on the faculty will probably be your enrollment officer, the person who helps you get organized at registration time. Another friend will be your counselor, who talks over your interests and background and helps you map your college program. He's available for consultation anytime during your college career when you need advice about personal problems of any kind.
I was raped in my sophomore year, and they threw me out of school. And this is 26 years ago now. And it's still a reference point in my life, and it's still very painful. And I believe this was the beginning of my personal radicalization. We all had a habit of hitchhiking. Unfortunate habit. And I was the one who it caught up with, this bad habit, and I was raped. And my first reaction, being the idealistic young woman that I was to go straight to the police. And what I did not understand was that going to the police made the event public and put the university on the spot. And they forced me to leave. But my future was being taken away from me from nothing that I had done that had any malice or harm in it. Harm was done to me.
Embarrassed administrators like these were free to throw Judith Karpova out because they had absolute power. They didn't want their boat rocked. Like the rest of society, their goal was to maintain the status quo. That meant white male dominance, frequently racial and religious quotas, and trouble for people like Judith Karpova. In these old films, students look relaxed and free to do as they like. What you can't see is that they were subject to a system known as in loco parentis, in place of parents, in which administrators treated them like children. That's what parents expected.
I have never had any doubt but what Larry can do better work than what he's doing, as I said. I believe that when you get to college, you'll find out that it isn't the playtime that you have in high school. And it's up to him to find that out. And I don't believe it'll take them very long to show him that they separate the boys from the men when you get into the universities.
For most young people in 1960, college was a continuation of high school and the next step on the path to career and marriage. Any criticism of the system would have to come from someone else, like little-known songwriter Malvina Reynolds.
And the people in the houses all went to the university where they were put in boxes and they came out all the same. And there's doctors and lawyers and business executives and they're all made out of ticky-tacky and they all look just the same. And they all play on the golf course and drink their martinis dry and they all have pretty children and the children go to school and the children go to summer camp and then to the university where they are put in boxes and they come out all the same. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family in boxes made of ticky-tacky and they all look just the same. There's a pink one and a green one and a blue one and a yellow one and they're all made out of ticky-tacky and they all look just the same.
Of course, as every girl, I have aspirations to someday be married and raise a family and to someday be in love with someone very, very much so that even after I'm past 30, even after I'm past 30, there's something to live for because you have someone to give your life to, someone to do things for, to take away from the monotony of life because as long as you're giving of yourself, you still have something to live for.
Maybe a nice home in suburbia and some nice kids and a beer and a ball game on a Saturday afternoon.
At Oregon State College, something new has been added. It's a student covered from head to ankle in a black bag. At first, classmates were hostile toward what appeared to be a far-out prank. The unidentified student attends only one class dressed this way. He says his idea is a testing of student conformity.
Student conformity. That described the behavior of an overwhelming majority of middle-class white college students. But there was another group that didn't conform, a group that had already begun rebelling against what society had in mind for them. They were young black students attending black colleges in the South. As the decade began, these activist black students and the mainly placid white students were scarcely aware of each other. But within 4 years, they would together bring about fundamental changes in American society. It began with a new mood in the country, a renewed desire for change. One key reason, the 1960 election of John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
Absolutely clear, no question about it, that Kennedy created the general atmosphere, created a climate of high idealism. And I think, you know, in telling the story of the 60s, that would be the most important thing too. At the beginning, the idealism was evangelical. I mean, there was absolutely a sense of we will make a beautiful world, a much better world, a more humane world, a more cheerful world, a world that will be much more egalitarian than the world will be, a much more compassionate world. There was, I mean, it was marvelous.
I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. Ask not what your country can do for you.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask not. Ask not. Ask not. Ask not what your country can do.
Ask what you can do for your country.
Ask what you can do for your country.
This is a great country.
but I think it could be a greater country.
My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but